Do you ever feel like your builds are just missing that wow factor? Well, don't worry. I've got 3 tips that are going to help you build like a legend. This is all thanks to a game mode called Just Build on a server called The Hive. We're diving into the chaotic fun of Just Build to focus on 3 key skills: size, color palette, and level of detail. By the end of this video, you'll be turning heads with your epic builds. The gist of this game is you get a theme, a timer, and a challenge to build something incredible. The only thing is, the clock is your worst enemy. In this game mode, you only get 5 or 10-minute rounds to complete your build. So let's jump right in and learn how to improve your build 1 round at a time. Alright guys, so the theme that we got is Sleigh. First things first, size matters. In Just Build, you have limited time, so choosing the right size for your build is crucial. So I'm going to gather a color palette, which we will get into in the next round, and I'm going to begin framing out the sleigh. First thing I'm going to do is set the floor, oh, you didn't see that, set the floor to snow. Then I'm going to lay out how big I want this thing to be. So I think since we're doing 10-minute rounds, I'm going to make it about this wide and that long. Probably about 10 blocks long, a 5-block gap. I think this is a good size where I will be able to accomplish a decent level of detail while still making the intended creation. If you go too big, you'll run out of time and end up with a half-finished mess. But if you go too small, you might not grab anybody's attention. The goal is to make something that is stunning, that'll immediately catch the eye of others. Okay, so we got our sleigh framed out, and I'm going a little bit slower than usual just because of this recording, but that's okay. Try to make it as textured as possible. I'm going to add a little bit of snow around the side of it to look like it's been going into the snow. And then since I still have about 5 minutes left, I'm going to go ahead and build a couple of small reindeer. I'm going to use spruce fences to act like the ropes that are connecting the reindeer. And then I'm going to use concrete just to build simple little reindeer with wood as their antlers. I'm only going to make 2 of these, maybe 3. Yeah, I'll make 3 of these. And now since we're limited on time, I'm not going to go crazy with the level of detail on these things. This is just to make the build look a little bit more full. I'm going to give them big old exaggerated eyeballs. I think that'll look funny. And then I'm going to use white banners as the eyeballs themselves. Even though I think it should be the other way around. That's okay. Like I said, focus on scale. I'm already down to 3.5 minutes and I've barely done anything. Well, I've done a decent amount. And I've got a beautiful little build going. The antlers being exaggerated like this give it a little bit more texture as well. And then I'm going to add a little bit of snow on top just to make them look like they're in the scene as well. I'll even throw a little bit on their paws and around them. I said paws, I'm sorry, they're hooves. They're deer. They're deer. I promise they're deer. They might not look like deer, but they are. And I think anybody who is comprehending the game will understand that these are deer because you can correlate them with a sleigh. So we still have about 2 more minutes. I think I'm going to go ahead and build some icicles around the sleigh. Remember, size matters, but icicles are very simple. You just spam a bunch of blocks in one direction, make it a little bit bigger around the bottom of the icicle, and give it a nice base. And then we can make like a couple of them in 15 seconds. I made that. So I'll make a couple more. And this is just to fill in the scenery around it and make it look not so barren. Which all of these tips correlate, and if you use all of them together, you can really take your builds to the next level and accomplish things that you never even knew you could do. You just can't be scared to try. The worst that happens, it doesn't look good. Who cares? These are all people on the internet. So we have about a minute left now. I'm making my last icicle, and then I'll just place a couple of, you know what? I'm going to throw some snow on top of the icicles to make it fit into the scenery a little bit more, like they've been sitting there for a really long time. We can do this easily. And we're down to our last 30 seconds. Bada boom, bada bam. This is beautiful. And every second counts, guys. So I'm going to grab some leaves and I'm going to place a couple of leaves around just to add a little bit more color and mix up the palette a little bit. This will fit in the scene as well. So there we go. There we have it. We made a sleigh with some reindeer and some icicles surrounding it. This guy's proportions are very well done. The Santa to the Rudolph is very well. And I think overall it's a very good build. Here's ours. Let's see what people have to say about it. it. I'm not seeing the best ratings, but this is just build. As you can see in this build, this guy made his sleigh really big, and because it's so big, he wasn't able to detail it as much. Know your limits so you can at least balance the build. The key takeaway is mastering scale keeps your builds polished and ensures that you can finish with enough time to spare. We did get second place. Alright, let's get on to the next tip. Nail your color palette. So the theme is snowy tree. Picking the right color palette can make or break your build. After all, you do want it to look cohesive, not like a rainbow just exploded everywhere. For this snowy tree, I'm going to keep it simple. I'm sticking with snow, ice, stripped spruce wood, and oak leaves. First thing I'm going to do, set the floor to snow, and now I'm going to start to build the actual tree itself. I'm going to build a massive tree straight in the middle. We're going to make the tree get skinnier toward the top and bigger toward the bottom, with a nice big old base around the bottom. We're going to also make some roots coming out, make it look like it has been there for quite a while. So for this specific design, I'm going to make it look like the tree fell. So I'm going to put the other half of the tree going out of the arena. As you can see, the color palette is very simple. I'm only using a few blocks, but sometimes it's best that way. You don't want to always overcomplicate everything that you make. So we got the branches in, we got the tree made. I'm going to start filling in some leaves. We're just going to randomly throw them around. Remember, this is speed building, so you do want to use your time pretty quickly, but you also want to make sure you're using it efficiently. So we got our leaves filled in for the most part. I'm going to put some around the bottom as well to make it look like leaves have been falling. And then I'm also going to put leaves around the broken part of the tree to make it look like this was at one point a living tree. So now we're going to use our half snow blocks, like a little carpet snow, and we're going to just droop a bunch of snow all over this tree. We're going to do it on the bottom, on the top, everywhere, because it is a snowy tree after all. I'm going to make it look like snow has been burrowing around this, been building up over time. And then also some snow around the base. But we're going to make it more elevated around where the tree is not covering to make it look like there's a little canopy underneath the tree. We're going to do this all the way around. So we'll make it look like it's encaved in this little snowy hill. Fill in a couple of these gaps just to make it look a little more flush. And we're going to do that on a couple of the sides, just because it adds a little bit more depth to the build. Just keep in mind, guys, I'm only using 5 blocks for this color palette. Only 5 blocks. And it's doing everything that I needed to do to get the build and the design that I am imagining. So don't always overcomplicate, but make sure you use blocks that are relevant to the scene. Also try to use blocks that contrast well together. The spruce wood really stands out in the snow. It's a little bit darker of a wood, so it contrasts very well with the snow. I'm also going to put a couple of bushes around the hills just to draw some attention to them. And then just to finish off, I'm going to add snow blocks just only on top of some of these leaves. I'll put a few blocks here and there around the inside just to add a little bit of variation in the tree. So we are down to a minute now. I think this looks really good. I'm just going to go around and I'm going to add a couple of these ice spikes that we did in the last build, because they will complement this very well. It is a snowy, icy scene after all. Remember, throw a little bit of snow on top of these, make them look covered, and there we have it. We have 10 seconds left, and I would say this build is fully complete. This is my version of a snowy, broken down tree, and I'm very happy with it. All right. Is this supposed to be a tree or an elf hat? I like the scene that this guy made, but the theme is snowy tree, and these trees are not very detailed, so I'm just gonna have to give him okay. Oh, it didn't let me vote. This is an example of what not to do. His color palette, it does make sense, but he did not use it correctly. There we go, guys. We got first place. I would say that they like the snowy tree. The key takeaway here is that experimenting with colors in Just Build can help you develop an eye for palettes that'll bring your idea to life. So don't be scared to experiment. Moving on to our third and final tip, balance your level of detail. So this round we got presents. Adding just the right amount of detail can take your build to the next level, but you have to learn how to balance it. For this one, I'm going to build a tree and focus mainly on the presents that are underneath of the Christmas tree. So I'm not going to put as much detail into building the actual tree itself. With that being said, I do still want the tree to catch people's eyes and draw their attention down toward the presents. So I'm just going to start with a basic Christmas tree, wider bottom, skinnier top. It doesn't need to be 100% symmetrical. Trees are never 100% symmetrical. Every tree is different. So this is a decent start. It doesn't need to be overkill. It doesn't need to be too big. Sometimes too much detail can look a little bit messy. So don't go overkill on the amount of detail depending on the theme that you get. For this build, I think that simple will get more likes. So I'm going to take a few different colors of blocks and I'm just going to make multiple different presents in different colors. Remember to use the other tips in this video, such as scale. They do not need to all be equal in size. For example, I will make a bigger present right here, and I'm going to use contrast colors on specific presents. I'm going to use a pink on this purple, just so it pops a little bit. We're going to use different variations of shape and size. I'm going to break a few of the corner blocks just to give it a different shape. And we're also going to build different shapes of presents. So I'm going to make like a cylinder kind of present over here, and the ribbons will be green. We'll go with the green, Christmas. And there's another present. So I'm going to make a whole bunch of these. Sometimes it's not about how good you can build. It's just about how good you execute the assignment. Think about it like school. You don't need to always be the best at a specific subject to get by. For this build, I'm going to make a wood floor to make it look like it is inside of a house. And I'm going to use wool carpet to make a slight ring around the tree. So we're down to about 4 more minutes. At this point, I'm going to spend a little bit of time and make the tree a little bit more appealing. So I'm going to put a gold star at the top, and I'm also going to use roof tiles as decorations for the Christmas tree. I'm just going to randomly place these around the tree to make them look like Christmas bulbs. For this one, I am perfectly okay with using multiple different colors. I want this to be colorful and I want it to draw attention, so that's okay. After all, Christmas trees are very colorful. I'm going to make a few more presents just to fill up the area a little bit, and then we will call this build complete. And we got about 1 minute to spare. So I'll make one more smaller present right here. And then we'll make one long one over here. And we have about 10 seconds to spare. So this guy did a similar thing as me. He went for less of a level of detail, and he went for a bigger size, not necessarily more presents, but his presents are big in size, so that's good. For this one, this guy built too big for his level of detail. The present's not detailed enough for the scale. Here is another example. He was not able to finish the details on his build because the scale was just too massive. He didn't have enough time. So these presents are actually highly detailed. They used terracotta blocks to make this, and it kind of does resemble wrapping paper. So I think this is a very, very good build, and they're a good size scale. Here's ours. The level of detail on the presents is lower, but we do have more presents than most people. Here's another example. This guy's color palette, I don't know. I don't think it works necessarily, and there's no detail to any of this. I mean, it's just a square. This guy did something similar as me, but his level of detail is lacking. The tree doesn't necessarily pull your eye to it, and if it does, it's kind of more of an eyesore. This guy went for a similar design as me with his presents. The level of detail is they're lacking, but he also did not build a tree. So I don't know. I don't think this is as impressive just because there's nothing complementing the presents. And on that last one, we did not do very good. We ended probably around 5th place, and that is most likely because the level of detail was a lot lower on the presents. So that's okay. I'll take it. The takeaway from this third tip is adding thorough details gives your build personality, and it helps it stand out in voting time. In this episode, we went over 3 tips to help take your building to the next level. First was the size. Keep your builds manageable to finish on time. Second was the color palette. Use complementary colors that fit the theme. And finally, the level of detail. Add texture and personality without overcomplicating things. If you follow these 3 tips, I guarantee that you will take your builds to the next level. Whether you're building a castle, a car, or whatever theme the Hive throws your way, these tips will have you crushing it in no time. If you enjoyed this video, smash that like button, subscribe for more Minecraft content, and tell me your favorite building tip in the comments below. Anyways guys, stay crafty. Peace.